Welcome back to today's episode of Words of the Wise. Today I have Chief Hawkins from Trenton PD in Michigan, 26 years total in law enforcement. He is a graduate of the School of Staff and Command for Executive Leadership from Eastern Michigan University, a graduate of the FBI National Academy Class 291, and wellness is something that is a huge priority for him and his agency. So I'm really looking forward to having him today. Welcome, Chief Hawkins. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Of course. No, I'm looking forward to it. When we talked offline, there were a few things that you told me that I have never heard before. I've never heard of an agency doing some of these things. So I'm really excited for you to share that with our listeners. But I wanted to first kind of hop into your why when it comes to wellness. I know it's obvious to me, and I'm sure it'll be obvious to our listeners here shortly, that wellness is something that's a priority to you. But why is that topic so important?
Well, wellness is a priority now for us and for me at our agency because we did not have a good program before. We did not have any processes really in place. So it was something we saw was lacking. And, speaking to other chiefs, other leaders, not only in Michigan, but even across the country, came up with some ideas of what we could do here. And, I go around, I teach classes, in one of the aspects of one of the classes is generational differences, right? So we talk about the baby boomer generation to Gen X, to millennials, to Gen Z. And the people that we are hiring now are much more in tune with mental health and wellness, and they want that part of it as a comprehensive package when they're looking for an agency. So not only do we have to get into that space to recruit the best candidates, it's something they need. It's not going away. And it's something, frankly, that a lot of agencies, including my own, were lacking. So it is something that is a high priority.
It's interesting that you said, I went around talking to people. And I think that sometimes we forget the value in having conversations and sharing ideas. And there are a lot of people out there that are doing things. And so for you to say, hey, I talked to different chiefs, but then I also talked to our people to understand what is it that we can do better, I think is a really powerful first step. And there are a lot of agencies out there that feel the same way, that they don't really feel like they have a wellness program or maybe don't know where to start. And so I appreciate you saying, hey, I just started asking questions. I started talking to people, trying to understand, how we can do better. I really am interested in hearing how you're able to handle the generational divide.
Well, I don't know if anybody's handling it real well yet, right? But in when I talk about it, we talk about how people learn, how people like to be respected, how they communicate, and the changes are going to happen whether we like them or not. So this new generation, excellent with technology, in tune, with feelings, with themselves. As the older generation, that some of them now in the chief spots or the leadership spots, they're not necessarily as good as at some of those things. So we can use the talent of these younger generations to benefit the police department and give us a broader scope of what we can do and what we can offer. There are people now that work to live. In the past, it was they live to work, right? People want time off, they want other things, and we've got to start offering different avenues for the new employee.
Yeah.
But going back on your point about talking to other people, and that's, you mentioned the Eastern Michigan Staff and Command and the FBI Academy. So when I went to those classes, there are people in Eastern Michigan from across the state of Michigan that you learn from, and the FBI Academy from across the world, really. And you realize your problems are the same problems in law enforcement everywhere, which was great to hear. And there's other agencies, whether they're large agencies or small agencies, that we can steal from, right? We're not going to reinvent the wheel. And I think that sharing of information and tweaking these programs into your own agency makes things so much easier, having that communication with other leaders.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And, I find it really interesting, like when we talk about, trying to identify what everyone is looking for is hard, right? Everyone's different. They learn different. They want different things. But for you to say, hey, we understand that the older, I'm going to put that in quotes, like the older generation, maybe they need to be approached in a different way because they did grow up in a different time. Some of these things are foreign. Some of these things are maybe not comfortable. They weren't talked about, back in the day when you guys were
Yeah.
all growing up. And then to the flip of that, it's like, okay, well, we have this younger generation that are more open to it and they do want more of that work-life balance. And so how do we adapt to everybody? Because everyone has value within the organization. What I find to be really, really funny, and I don't know if it's just, maybe there's just a balance or a fine line between it, but I would say almost every chief I've ever talked to ever has always said that one of the things is like finding a work-life balance. But then one of the biggest complaints that I hear about the younger generation is that they want to be home more than they do
Yeah.
at work. And so I'm curious to see kind of how everything progresses, and how you can find that kind of balance where it's like, yes, we want you to do that, but we also want you to be at work.
And it is
Yeah.
hard in an agency like ours as well. I will tell you, I had a terrible work-life balance forever. And sometimes when you put down on a note what you want to do in the future, I want to have a better work-life balance. Absolutely. But the generation now, that's absolutely what they want. And they went through COVID, they went through virtual. But in an agency, we have 35 sworn members. It's hard to have that work-life balance. So what we're trying to do, and I know we talked offline, we're creating a brand new station here. Our residents approved a bond, so we're building a brand new station. We've gone through the design phase. And I'm excited. Every week we meet and go through the rooms, the design. Now it's the furniture. So what we've tried to do is create work as a place where people don't mind being, right?
Mhm.
So we're trying to create spaces that serve the wellness capacity. So we currently are in a 99-year-old building that was never built for a police station. It was a city hall, a library, a court, and all kinds of things. So I look out my window and I can see the construction going on, and I'm excited about the spaces that we're able to bring to this really every officer, but this new generation. So we're going to have a complete workout facility and in a mat room. A lot of these kids want mat room. There's jujitsu. There's a lot of training with defensive tactics. We'll have our own mat room there. We are going to brand new locker room, but it includes cold plunge, which was a big hit, and sauna. Those are a couple things that are coming to the station. And then what we're doing is adding a wellness room as well. So we're contracting with a provider to come down biannually to give mental health checkups to our officers. And I'll be the first one to start and try and reduce the stigma. We don't want somebody involved being sent to a psychologist. We want it to be a normalized thing. And I took that idea when I was at the FBI Academy from a chief down in Hamilton Township, and I thought, what a great idea, And then as I brought it up, one of our people here said, "Well, it's like a spa day for the brain." I thought, well, yeah, you're right. So, as cops, we're some of the worst when it comes to talking about feelings or anything that's going on, myself included. So this is going to be a way, and we put it in the budget on a wellness line to make sure that we're serving our officers or families and in doing it right and taking care of them. So we're trying to create a space at work where even though they're away from home, they don't mind being, and we're creating policies to have some workout on duty, again, which we've taken from other agencies that show that it works. When you're here 12 hours, that's a long time. You combine a lunch and some breaks into a workout, you're not only getting a healthy officer physically, but mentally, and hopefully that comes into serving the community even better.
Yeah, I'm a huge proponent for presenting things in a way that's effective. And I think the way that you framed it, even saying, hey, it's like a spa day for your brain, it's like people can get on board with that because when you connect the outcome, like, oh, this feels like it's relaxing. This feels like it's something like
And I can't take credit for that.
I know.
My administrative assistant came up with that, and I thought, wow, what a great way to explain that. Right?
100%. And I think that we have to start, and I learned this the hard way. So when I started in this space, I was really resistant. I was like, we are going to call things what they are. We are all adults. We're going to say, if it's therapy, it's therapy. If it's yoga, it's yoga. If it's this, it's this. Like we're going to just say what it is. And then everyone can just get on board with it because we're all adults. And then I learned really quickly that that is not a good strategy because we have to meet people where they are. And the idea is to create a space where people, like you said, kind of want to do it. They're on board. We're breaking the stigma. It's something that isn't like so taboo, and so the way we present things is important. And so what I have found to be really successful is focusing on the desired outcome rather than the method. And so what you just said was a perfect example of that. The desired outcome is a spa day for your brain, right? It's like
Yeah.
something that's like positive. The method might be talking to a talk therapist or a
Mhm.
psychiatrist. That's the method, but the desired outcome is spa day for the brain. So I'll put this in another example that we found to be successful. So, if you walk into a briefing room and you say, hey, how many of you guys want to do a breathing technique all together? Like depending on the culture of the agency and where you are, maybe you have some buy-in from that, maybe some people are used to it, but I will tell you most of the time when I walk into a briefing room, people are going to be looking around like, who is this girl?
Yeah.
But if I were to walk into a briefing room and say, hey, how many of you guys want to sleep better? You're going to get a lot more hands in
Yeah.
the air. And so again, we're not focusing on the method. The method would be a breathing technique. The desired outcome is sleeping better. And most people want to sleep better. And so I'm a really big fan of how we frame things to get people excited about doing things, or at least a little bit more on board with doing things.
Yeah, and I hope with the transition to our new building within about a year, 13 months, that excitement will transition into some of the buy-in on some of these programs as well.
Yeah. You said that you are going to be the one to do it first. And you told me offline, you're like, put up or shut up. Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, you
do you
have to.
think that's the
You can't
key?
force feed people. We're going to do this, and then sit back and don't do it yourself, right? And there's times you have to lead from the front, lead from the middle, lead from the back. And when you're instituting a new program that people may be hesitant with, that's an opportunity to get out in front and say, no, this is what we're going to do. I'll go first and come out and hopefully be okay, right? Not that bad, and then offer it to everybody. Now, the provider that we've contracted with does this for police and families. I mean, this is a specialty of hers and came highly recommended. And if somebody was so resistant they did not want to talk, they still get the opportunity to go in there and they can sit there and rest for their time. But it is something that we're going to offer and have people. It's not a punishment. It is strictly confidential, and they can say whatever they want, to the provider.
Yeah. Well, I think to your point, like you said, it's not a punishment. I think we have to ask ourselves what is the goal of doing all of these things? And I think everyone's going to have different answers for that. But I think at the core, the goal is to support your people to make sure that they, have longevity on the job and they have quality of life and, they can be the best versions of themselves. And how can we make sure that they have resources to do that? And so I think that if you, again, look at the desired outcome of it, it's not a punishment. It's like, we want you to be the best. We want to make sure
Yeah,
you're good.
and we do, and I think myself included, we forget so many things that people may be struggling with outside of work. We see the inside of work,
Yeah.
but being away from your family, working the 12-hour shifts, having to get forced into overtime, kids, sports, all this other stuff that we don't see. And if we can provide an opportunity for our officers to get those things off their chest, and whether they continue with talking on their own, doing whatever, but at least twice a year, let them reset, refresh, and have somebody give them a little guidance or assistance that could go a long way.
100%. I do want to kind of rewind a little bit because I know that, these are things that you guys are working towards. You're building this new facility. There was kind of maybe a catalyst or like a jump start for a lot of these things in these conversations. And I know that you guys just went through something the day before Thanksgiving. Can you tell us what happened and what was kind of the aftermath of that incident?
Yeah, so obviously the construction, the building that's been going on for a while, but really the mental health check-in, it was something on my radar for the last 2 years. How am I going to push it out? When am I going to push it out? And what happened the day before Thanksgiving, we had an officer involved shooting. And while I can't talk too many details, obviously there's always some ongoing things. Our officers did an outstanding job, and went in and approached danger, and every one of our officers came out physically okay. Right. The problem is, what does it do mentally? So, what we did our critical incident debriefs, and that's a standard. We had our officers, the dispatch, and other agencies come and talk about kind of the response and what they're going to see. But what was different in our scenario was we had an officer that had 16 hours on and another officer with 1 year on, right? So it wasn't just your standard. You got some experienced officers in here. So, 48 hours earlier, he rose his right hand. He was sworn in. And I made a promise to him, his family, and all that were there that we would take care of him. And we're a generally safe community, but I tell people all the time, you never know what you're going to walk into. At any minute, anything could happen. We always have to be prepared. So this officer did an outstanding job, but, I'm called to the carpet 48 hours later saying, you told us you'd take care of us. What are you going to do? So my fear was, number one, he has not been subjected to anything. It's only his second shift of patrol. Brand new officer, young officer, and even the other one of the other officers involved, only a year on. My fear was that they live at home. The families are going to have a major influence on their career, especially in the beginning. And I didn't want to lose anybody, especially these people involved in this incident. So what I did was the critical incident debrief team, I asked them if we could create a family debrief. And he had said he'd never heard of that before. I said, well, this is a different scenario. Back 20 years ago, you didn't have some of these things. But now I said, I need to have the family come in to understand what their son or daughter is going to go through and how they can assist, because they're just beginning their career. It has just started, and we need to make sure that they're healthy and mentally healthy to continue not only in law enforcement, just to continue on. So we did make it voluntary, and I was hoping that these officers' families would come, and they did. Because as we spoke earlier, they're in tune with what's going on in the needs. So we sat in the room, and I kind of gave a introduction to, not the specifics of the case, mind you, but just spoke to them. And I can tell you the parents were in tears. I was in tears. I felt, I've got a son that was the same age as one of these officers, and, he's looking at becoming an officer too. So I look at him and I see, my family as well. So we spoke to them, had the critical incident team speak to them. They were able to ask questions, and we provided additional resources beyond the EAPs that the cities can offer, and told them we would take care of them. We made that vow to take care of them as officers, and we were going to hold to our promise. And we did that. And I think the families, especially the moms, I think were very appreciative of being brought in and allowed to understand the process. And I think that's sometimes just the concern. What is the process? What's going to happen? And just knowing that takes some of the fear of the unknown out of what's going to happen. And it's, they came back to work relatively quick because they did an outstanding job, did nothing wrong. And they've been doing well. So I'm glad we got that. And we talk about stealing other ideas. Another agency that assisted us had the same type of incident a week later, and borrowed the same program with the same people and offered it to families, because this influx, there's hiring everywhere. There's recruiting crises everywhere. There's new younger police officers coming in, and they had the same type of incident, so they used a family debrief as well. So it's something that maybe will gain some traction.
Wow. Yeah, I remember you telling this to me offline, and I had written a note next to it. I was like, that's really cool. Like, like the silliest note, but I've had a lot of conversations about wellness, obviously through this podcast. And I've never heard that before. So I thought that was really unique and really cool. And I know that you guys, obviously had a unique situation with two officers that were really new. One brand spanking new,
Yeah.
just got sworn in. But do you think that doing something like that could be something that is more regular or, more, I don't want to say mandatory, but do you
Yeah,
think
we would
having
never make it
family, yeah,
mandatory, and I would never call a spouse of somebody
right.
and obviously ask them. But I think going forward, if we have a critical incident like that, it only helps to offer that. If nobody shows up and I'm sitting there by myself for a half hour, that's okay. We offered those resources, right? Now, um, I think it went a long way with these officers and their families, and ironically, the person that was doing the critical incident debrief, who was a certified psychologist as well, and he said if I had a son or daughter, this is the type of department I would want them to work for because they prioritize their employees. And, I almost brought a tear to my eye at the time. I'm like, man, we are doing things right. And I always say we don't want to reinvent the wheel, but we're building it at this point. So it is new and hopefully it's something that we continue on.
Well, and it's something that you said earlier that it's also a part of recruitment and retention. It's a small community and a lot of people are looking at a lot of different agencies. And if there's one that sticks out where they're like, man, like I really feel like they're going to take care of me, then that helps with recruitment efforts. But then retention, you said you were afraid you didn't want people to leave. You didn't want to lose good officers because of something like this. And so being able to have these above and beyond resources that help to keep them there and help to keep them well. So thank you for sharing that. And I'm sure everyone who's listening, it's probably a new idea for them too. So hopefully someone will spark an idea that they can maybe implement with their agency as
Oh
well.
yeah, and they're always free to reach out as well to us at Trenton PD if they have any questions about what we did or how we did that.
Perfect. I love that. So you said a little bit about how you were able to do this, but I want to kind of talk about how were you able to implement these things, budget, buy-in, all the stuff? Because those are the questions, right? It's like every chief I talk to, it's like, well, okay, that sounds great, but like, how do we do this? Like very tactical. Do you have any like tips and tricks that anyone can kind of learn from you on how to be able to get these things in the budget and how to move forward with these initiatives?
Well, first off, for the clinician to come in biannual, that I just put into our budget, and I replace a few things that were older, but when you put a line for officer wellness, it's hard for the city to say no, right? We don't want that. So we put it right out there. We're not hiding it. This is what it is. Now, I would have found a way. I would have found some grants otherwise, and we'll still look at grants for mental health and hopefully offset some of that cost. But some of the other things, we were fortunate to have our community vote on a public safety bond. We're building a new police station, new fire station, updates to city buildings. Long overdue, and we appreciate the community coming out and supporting that. That's allowed us to have these resources in the building. Now, I have a budget, and we have to work within that budget of our station, but we've got some phenomenal partners guiding us through design and architecturally, and we're able to meet so far all those requirements by adding these spaces in opportunities for our employees when we get into the new building.
Yeah. I love that statement of like, hey, we did it this way, but if for some reason they said no, like we were going to do it anyway. We were going to find
Yeah,
a way.
we'll find a way. There's always a way, right? And to take care of your people, you've always got to find a way to do that. And fortunately, I work for a city with the city administration that would support us. If I went to them and said, "Hey, we need this for our officers," when it comes to support, they would do that. Our HR director was helping and assisting with, the city EAP resources. It takes everybody to take care of our men and women here. But as for implementing, we just did it. right? So we're going through the accreditation process to become an accredited agency. So fortunately, our accreditation manager already had the critical incident policy. It was probably just put in months prior and approved. So we had the roadmap to get there. The family one was something new, and I was hoping there'd be buy-in, and sometimes reaching out to the right people who have that connection. I went to an officer who worked on the shift or knew maybe one of the spouses on there, and hey, it would be very beneficial if they could show up. So it always a little weird coming maybe from the chief, and again, I would never call a spouse or family member to come in, but using other resources to get to people and get to that officer to let them know how beneficial this can be to them.
Yeah. I like that you said, like, we just did it. I think that so often and I'm guilty of this too. I think everyone's guilty of doing this maybe in their own personal lives at some point, but we get so caught up in the awareness and education stages of things, which I think is important. It's important to know what some of the challenges are. It's important to know what are those resources that can help. But the most important, arguably, is going to be that actionary step, right? You're never going to change anything or make any forward progress if you don't take action. So for you to be like, we just did it. And some of these things were new concepts, and maybe they weren't going to be successful, but we were willing to try it anyway. And I think that sometimes you do have to kind of step out on a limb a little bit and have a little bit of trial and error to find out what works and what doesn't. And so I like that sentiment of you just did it. My question for you is, what would you say to people who still think that wellness is a nice to have and not a have to have?
Well, I will tell you, I probably came from that space prior, right? There's incidents like these in conversation I have with other people. And when you step back and you take a look, right? A lot of times you're in the mix. We're doing this. It becomes an afterthought. Yeah, it'd be nice to have. And then you start to hire these people who are in tune. They want this. And then you have incidents where you need these resources. That's not the time to try and create them, which we had to do. So that really sparked me to saying, we need this. And that's when we put in the budget, the clinician to come down. It's like, no longer is this, we'd like to have this. We need this to keep our people safe, mentally safe, for their families, for the community. When you look at the whole picture, if we can make and help an officer be better on the road, be better mentally, we're helping in turn our city and our residents, and it's a win-win everywhere.
Yeah, I like that. I really like the imagery of like zooming out and looking, because you're right. We're in the trenches sometimes. We're grinding it out, and it's hard to see from a bird's eye view of what's going on when you're just so inundated with the day to day.
And I think I've had a hard time with that, taking over. And I've been with this agency for 25 years. But when you finally take a breath and step back and realize maybe this wasn't right, maybe we're missing this, and it is taking a step back and looking at the overall picture and saying just a couple tweaks here and there, and I think we can help our men and women out, and that's what we need to do. And I think that incident, that critical incident, kind of gave a reset to what's important.
Yeah.
Right. When I came in, I changed a lot of things, but what's important are our people, right? So I exist to take care of our people, and that's our officers and our community and our city, right? But the first step is our officers, and it was a great reset for us, and ended with all of our people being okay.
Yeah, you just sparked an idea for me, so thank you. I am going to start implementing Zoom out sessions for myself, and I think that this is something, and I'll report back. I'm going to start doing this. I'm going to figure out how often. Maybe it's like once a month, once a quarter, but having scheduled Zoom out sessions to like really try to have that bird's eye view of like, is what I'm doing, on a personal level, but also professional level, is it effective? Are there other ways to do it? Are there other ways to look at it? And so I think you just sparked that idea for me. I think that would be a really positive change for me to, because I think everyone who's listening feels that, right? It's like you blink and it's been a year and you're like, I haven't even looked up from my desk. I'm still
Yeah.
trying to answer all my emails,
Yeah,
at
that's
this
how I've been
point.
for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. So like maybe having those scheduled, regimented times of like, okay, like every month or every quarter, we're going to have a Zoom out sesh and we're going to see like, are we good? Are we, on the right path, or do we need to make some adjustments? So thank you for that idea. I appreciate that a lot. My final question for you is for the younger generation. What words of wisdom would you share with the younger men and women who are entering in this career today?
Oh boy. I mean, I could have a lot of things, and I guess it kind of dovetails on the last one is, when you have that zoom out, you're going to make mistakes in this career, but don't let the mistakes define you. Let the lessons you learned define you, and continue on. So I'm one who, I guess, at times has been in the minority. So I get on my soapbox very often. And I was in a training class one time, and they said, who would be happy if their son or daughter, wanted to be a police officer? And I was in a room of, I think, 50 people at the FBI Academy, and I was the only one who raised my hand. And so I got on my soapbox, and I think I cussed everybody out. I said, listen, we are the worst when it comes to promoting our profession. This is the greatest job on earth. You have a front row seat to the greatest show you'll ever see. And you have an opportunity to make a change and make a difference. So we have to be recruiters for these young people, and get them into the job. But, if I could tell somebody getting into the job something, I guess, as I look back and I take my zoom out, have friends, have hobbies outside of police work. Don't let this job define you. I've seen people that are all cop all the time, and they can be great cops, but the problem is when they're not here, they sometimes don't know what to do. And when you look at retirement, which somebody new is not going to even think about it, they struggle when it's time to leave. For our own mental health, and we talk about wellness, we have to have that disconnect of people, of hobbies, of things outside of police work to keep us regulated, because you can get in that daily grind of constant police work, and that burnout will get you. So make sure you have some outlets outside of police work that you enjoy, and you can have a long and successful career.
Thank you. Chief Hawkins, I really appreciate your time today. Thank you for coming on and sharing all the things that you're doing and your words of wisdom. I really appreciate it.
No, appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Of course.